Okay, okay. We'll build the wall, but who's gonna pay for the wall? Who? Absolutely right. You got it right, folks.
The film we're about to show you first aired in 2007. It questions a policy that's become even more contentious today.
The Sonoran Desert in the south of the United States. A harsh, hot, and unforgiving landscape straddling the border with Mexico. A natural barrier, not so much a protective wall, but a regional belt dividing the bodies of two nations. Thousands of illegal migrants cross into this area of Arizona every year. To them, it represents a gateway to a better life. In reality, it's often a gauntlet of death from which they may never return. Crossing the desert to avoid these steel and concrete walls which mark the border in urban areas.
When we're on a main road like this, we look for people, anybody out here. They could be standing on the side of the road if they have made it this far and need help. Atención médica, aquí está uno, doctora.
Volunteer Catherine Ferguson and physician Norma Price are Samaritans, rescuing those who are in desperate need of help, illegals who've been physically and mentally defeated by the deadly conditions.
People walk not only in trails, but they walk in circles because they're lost. So you could have a child walking out here, you could have a man, a grandmother, or you could have a group of people, and all I'm doing is looking for anything that looks like a human being.
But Catherine and Norma aren't the only ones on the lookout.
Two groups, both 10 plus.
10 plus, two groups, 10 plus. The United States government has as many Border Patrol and Border Patrol backup as there are stars in the sky.
In an attempt to secure its borders, the current administration is spending billions of dollars on enforcement. Money many argue is doing little to stop the human traffic, merely rerouting it.
Since they've closed the ports, it forces people out into this arid desert, and people are dying. So it is supposed to send a message back to the villages in Mexico that if you come here, you'll die out in the desert. It's a policy of death.
They really don't know what they're facing. I mean, they don't know how hot and dry it is. Most of them, if they haven't been here before, they don't know about the desert. And we see women in high heel shoes or wedge shoes, and they'll have one bottle of water. And in this environment that is so hot and dry and desolate, they need, if they have any degree of heat exhaustion or heat illness, they need to be taken to the hospital immediately. And the heat literally just cooks the organs, the brain, the heart, the kidneys. We see a lot of pregnant women, and that also increases the risk that they'll get into trouble. The worst, saddest of all, of course, is the children. And we see situations where children die.
But for those making the passage, it's a terrible choice. A gamble, really. Face death and avoid capture, or seek help, even if that means deportation.
Hola, señor! Hola, señor!
Ahead in the distance, emerging from the scrub, stands a solitary figure. His decision has been made. Paying with his life is too high a price for passage to the promised land.
¿Necesitan agua y comida?
Buenos días, señor. ¿Cómo está? Me llamo Catalina. Somos samaritanos. Somos de la iglesia.
Frightened, disorientated, and exhausted, his story is like so many others, left behind when he couldn't keep up with the group.
¿Cuántas personas fueron en el grupo?
25.
25.
Se quedaron 3, como 2 días fue, hasta acá aguanté.
¿Y por qué viene aquí a los Estados Unidos?
porque debo bastante dinero a México, mi país, y quiero pagar por eso.
¿Y cuántos días está aquí solo?
5 días, como hoy. Que era difícil, pero que había que probar, porque si uno no prueba nunca sabe cuál es la realidad. Como no solo te cuentan, no, ahí se pasa fácil, o ahí no se puede, entonces hay que mejor venir a probar para ver. El primer día fue bonito porque salimos de noche, solo caminó de noche, no había mucha espina. Ya el segundo día hay mucha espina, mucho frío, empezó a llover, bien mojado, el pantalón ya se mojó como 6, 8 veces, como ha estado lloviendo todas las noches, y se moja y se vuelve a secar. Ajá, fue difícil. Esta camisa era nueva, ya está toda rota, vieja. Pero Dios sabe la verdad. Porque...
¿Pensó de tu familia?
Mucho.
¿Y de qué?
Que ya sabían que me había quedado y que saber que...
The Samaritans present him with his options, but his face betrays the answer.
¿Qué es su sentido?
Regresar a México. Sí.
It's off of 286.
US law means the Samaritans can do nothing but call the border patrol. Placing an illegal in their own car would mean a possible jail sentence.
Anybody that gives them a ride will be arrested if they're caught. We can't do that. They could spend 5 years in prison for transporting an illegal alien and 10 years for conspiring against the United States government.
With little time to collect his thoughts and belongings, he's arrested by the Border Patrol. And this is a first-hand look at the law in action.
You have to stand back. Federal agent doing my job. Back off, please.
I apologize for America. There are really nice Americans here. Those guys were not nice.
But if the authorities appear to be taking a hard line, there's a reason for their lack of hospitality. The truth is, many who attempt to cross illegally will do so again and again until they succeed. And that means zero tolerance.
Senor, my life is in danger. I prefer you shut that off on me. Okay? Because you put it on the web. Okay? They have warned you.
Oh my goodness, these are human beings. We're dealing with intelligent, feeling, sentient beings, and we can't give them socks or water. There's something very wrong with that.
We have a schizophrenic sign at the border. We have this big sign that says, keep out. And at the same time, metaphorically, we have the sign that says, help wanted. There's a tremendous lure of jobs. We have significant sectors in the economy that need large numbers of low-skilled workers that we're not producing in the native-born population. And there are no legal channels for those workers to come in. And therefore, the only way those workers can enter in large numbers is illegally.
Judith Gans is an academic and an immigration expert. She knows the statistics speak for themselves.
Since 2000, people have been entering at the rate of about 850,000 a year. There are currently an estimated 12 million people in the country illegally, and that's a huge number. But the other thing that's happening is that immigrants are going to what we call non-traditional states. Communities all over the country are suddenly waking up to find large foreign-born populations in their midst, in their schools, and it seemed like it happened overnight, and people are sort of saying, wait a minute, what's going on? And there's a feeling that the system's out of control, which in fact it is. I mean, there are serious problems with our immigration system.
A series of fences dotted along the 3,000-kilometer border between the United States and Mexico were designed to stem the flow of illegal movement in urban areas. Based on current estimates, the system is a failure.
The walls have not been an effective deterrent. They've changed the way and the costs involved in getting in. At the time that the fence was put up in California, the assumption was that the desert was too difficult an environment and that the desert itself would be an effective wall and people wouldn't come in through the desert. And that has turned out to be false. People have come in through the desert, and as you know, a lot of people have died trying to cross.
If you ever buy camera gear on Amazon, you should use Wikibuy. It's a browser extension that automatically compares
us.
Despite this, the walls will continue to go up, with President Bush signing off on the Secure Fence Act in 2006, approving the construction of a wall stretching 1,000 kilometers. On the other side of the fence, the lure of the American dollar appeals to both citizens and the Mexican government alike.
Mexico benefits tremendously by having its workers here. Remittances, money being sent home by Mexican citizens working in the United States to their families in Mexico. It's the second largest source of foreign currency in Mexico. It lessens the social pressure within the country. So Mexico, in a real way, doesn't have a huge incentive to stop this.
Though for Dora Rosas, all she can see is a separation barrier which has divided her family.
Él se animó para irse para Estados Unidos porque aquí no, pues no, el trabajo pues le pagaban muy poquito. Y luego que se comenzó a hacer mono de yeso para vender, pues también la venta es muy baja, la gente no...
But without legal status, Juan cannot move between the two countries. So for the past 14 years, he hasn't seen his family in Mexico.
Más que el dinero, más que todo, como yo siempre lo he manejado con mi esposo y mi niña, estamos en una barca y si no remamos juntos no vamos a salir. Si uno de ellos se baja o se sale, nos hundimos todos. Es lo mismo si la familia si el papá se va al otro lado y él según está mandándonos para acá.
It's a sacrifice millions have been willing to make, and a path many more seem certain to follow. Mexico, a country of more than 100 million people, but where more than 40% live below the poverty line. For so many, that poverty line ends here, at the border with the United States. On the other side stands opportunity, employment, and dreams of earning a higher wage. But standing in their way are groups such as this. This is American Border Patrol, US citizens doing their bit to keep illegals out. The organization is led by Glenn Spencer. His Arizona ranch sits directly on the border. Thanks to Glenn, anyone can patrol it via the internet.
This is one of American Border Patrol's remotely operated border cams. This camera is wireless and operated by solar power. So really, you could run this camera from your home in New York to watch the border, so that we can have thousands of Americans watching the border with real vigilance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Glenn says the US government's Secure Border Initiative is a disastrous failure, and he's compiled hours of video footage to prove it.
This is the most highly policed area in the country, right? And we can walk through, even in daylight, right, with a huge atomic bomb on our back. And they wouldn't know it. They could stop it if they wanted to, but they don't want to. I will bet you there are at least 60 illegal aliens holed up, moving through the river, in the washes, right now. You have to understand, this goes on for 1,500 miles of the United States border, all along here. Now, people say, well, I don't see anybody. Well, they don't want to be seen.
And to make sure they are being seen, American Border Patrol is spending millions of donated dollars on surveillance equipment.
This is our Border Hawk UAV. UAV stands for unmanned aerial vehicle. And basically, it's not a lot different than a remote control airplane, except this has a computer inside of it. It flies by itself. And underneath, right down here, this is our little pan and tilt system here. This is one we designed and had built for us, and this allows us to look around 360. and interrogate a target, as it would be called, where you can look at something and stay on it as the plane's moving.
A former military man, Mike King knows how to catch the enemy. So when the Federal Aviation Authority stopped him flying unmanned aircraft, he simply changed tactics.
Plan B was to buy a real airplane, and so we did. We purchased a Cessna Tu-206, and but we get a lot of video that way. It's been an extremely effective tool for us to gather intelligence on what's happening on the border. Once you train your eye to see into the bushes, you start picking them out pretty easily as you fly along the border, especially on the south side as they're staging. They're aspiring illegal aliens at that point. There's a lot of it. You don't see it because they don't want to be seen, but they're everywhere. When we first got our thermal camera and put it on the house, and I turned it on, I swung it into the south, just looking into Mexico, there were people down there. And the next day there were people down there, and the next day there were people down there. And that every night I was catching groups of 20, 30 walking just west of the property here. For like 3 weeks straight, in 3 weeks I caught like 500 people. I don't pretend like I'm not involved. You know, my conscience won't allow me. I see it happening, you're not getting into my country today. And I call the Border Patrol. So let them deal with it. We don't go out and tackle anybody.
This all may seem a little excessive, obsessive, or even slightly mad. But considering that more than $3 billion is being spent on border security, Glenn showed Al Jazeera exactly where that money isn't going.
We're approaching now the international border between the United States and Mexico. I'm now going to step into Mexico, and here we are. South of the border, down Mexico way. This is the first line of defense for the United States against an invasion from the rest of the world. It may stop some, but not many. Look how much money we're spending on defending the borders of Iraq.
The best time to have your AC service is in the springtime. Make sure the electric cooling fan...
And our borders are wide open. And the government knows it. They're wide open to drugs, terrorists, and we've proven that. And they know it. But we're being sacrificed on the altar of globalism. They no longer believe in the nation state. They want to merge Mexico, the United States, and Canada together. And if a few thousand people are sacrificed in the process, that's just the price of doing business.
For many who have tried to cross and failed, they rest, receive medical treatment for cuts and blisters, and then get ready to do it all again. And here in Nogales, in Mexico, people smuggling is big business.
Por persona, pues aquí los precios que andan entre $1,500 y $2,000. Hasta allá, hasta finis.
This man is a coyote. He won't show his face because he imports goods from the United States. But it's human exportation and exploitation where the real money is.
El coyote hace el acuerdo aquí con la gente. Ejemplo, si viene una esposa y 2 niños hablan con el papá ya, y él se hace responsable de que llegue la gente y ya se lo paguen. Pero mientras en el trayecto de aquí para allá, ¿qué puede suceder? Puede suceder muchas cosas, se puede voltear el carro.
But therein lies the irony of the situation. The legal route into the US is fraught with as many obstacles as a trek through the desert.
Regardless of one's political allegiance, regardless of whether someone's an activist or a humanitarian, you can't turn away from those in need. I'll hear people say, well, I like the migrants, I just don't like the illegal migrants, or I like immigrants, just those who come in legally. And I think these people are either extremely naive or stubborn or turning their back on the situation because there's no way these people can come in legally.
Though, as the saying goes, do good fences make good neighbors? Many would argue it's merely the symptoms that are being addressed, not the cause. And that is an issue for both sides of the fence.
I think it's shameful that a country as rich as Mexico is forcing poor people to come to another country to work. I would suggest that it is shameful that the president of Mexico calls people who go to other countries illegally to work heroes. And I think it's shameful that of both our countries that we can't get together and work out some sort of a sensible policy.
Melissa Owens lives with the reality of illegal migration. This is her backyard. It stretches as far as the eye can see.
Well, basically, Mexico is about 4.5 miles right over that ridge right there. This is due south.
But she's seen enough of the problems and trespassers on her land.
I would say we would have at least one group of 15 to 20 people at least every night. Sometimes groups of men, but sometimes women with children in their arms, waking me up. You know, they have no idea what to do. They're lost. They just need help. They've been told by their guides, their coyotes, that it's 6 miles to wherever they're going. They get up to the top of that ridge and this is the view they get. They look out across this valley. Obviously, there's nothing.
But within the picturesque landscape, Melissa's ranch resembles a fortified compound, enclosed by razor wire to keep her safe and intruders out.
I had some men, I don't know how many it was, attempt to break in my house while I was here, and they were actually kicking in the door. And I was here by myself, and it was not a good experience. I think I'm pretty tough, but I don't particularly want to have that happen again.
Alone in such a remote environment, Melissa is prepared to defend herself and her property.
When I work away from the house, I wear a small handgun, and I have it on my belt almost all the time. I wear it for protection. I hope to God I never have to use this gun. I don't like having to wear it. It doesn't make me feel powerful or important. But on the other hand, if I am ever in a really bad situation, I want to be able to defend myself.
An emotionally charged issue, illegal migration has polarized Americans. It's an issue debated by politicians thousands of kilometers away in Washington, D.C., but one which affects individuals at the border directly.
If I didn't have the greatest respect for Hispanic culture, I sure wouldn't live on the Arizona-Mexico border. I'm not talking about race, I'm not talking about nationality, I'm talking about people who are on my land and in my country illegally. I don't want people I don't know walking across my land, and I don't care whether they're from Finland or Togo or Guatemala. I don't want them here.
Bring your family out to the Pool Together Family Fun Fest on Sunday, May 19th at the Coronado Mall. It's great.
It's a small war zone. People don't know what it is. I wish they would come here. At the moment, it's very quiet with beautiful big clouds, but at certain times of day, there are helicopters out here, there are horse patrols, there are ATVs around, there are guys that look like Darth Vader. They're completely covered in black, and they carry guns, and they're out here looking for people like the man we met today. It's another way to instill fear in Americans.
Since this film first aired, the US continued to increase spending on border security. At no other time in history has there been as many Border Patrol officers on duty as there are today. And now the authorities are bracing for a new challenge: children. Since 2014, the number of families and unaccompanied children apprehended at the border keeps skyrocketing. Young people are filling family detention centers, having fled poverty or extreme violence in Central America.
Mr. Donald J. Trump!
Today, the border issue is taking center stage in US politics, as US President Donald Trump gets serious about one of his biggest campaign promises.
We will build the wall, yes. We will build the wall. Oh, we'll build it.